Hello, my name is Joel McLeod.
I'm Roland Tanner.
And welcome back to the 905er. This is our weekly 905er roundup where we take a look around the 905 region and see what else is making the news and what else we should be talking about. Why don't we start us off with you, Roland? What have you found is happening here in our backyard of Burlington?
Well, yeah, anybody familiar with Burlington over the last decade and a half really will know that the perennial story is relates to development and council's ability to control, influence that development for good or bad or otherwise. So a development at Lakeshore Road and Pearl, which is right in the downtown, had gone to the newly renamed Ontario Land Tribunal, and the city, many will know, went through a very lengthy and then revised official plan process, and there were huge arguments about what the new heights should be for downtown. It'd been made clear by the OMB that the current heights they considered not tall enough, or not dense enough, whichever way you want to put it. So there was, a prolonged battle and an election in which the mayor changed and a whole lot of other stuff. And the city ended up with a recommendation for 17 stories. And the idea behind this was, well, 17 stories is at least defensible, whereas whatever would have been before, which is probably something like 5 stories under the old official plan, was simply not defensible when you go to these appeal tribunals. Well, felt long good that's done us, because an application for 29-story development has been approved. There's no kind of compromise between the city and the developer. The developer got their way entirely. They asked for 29, they got 29, which would make it, as far as I know, currently the tallest approved development, certainly in downtown Burlington, maybe not the tallest in the city, in that up by the GO station, there's some really big ones coming. It's the problem again of how cities and the province interact over development and the issues there.
But what makes this one a bit more unique is this time the mayor and the ward councillor for the area, so Mayor Marianne Mead Ward, whom we've had on the podcast before, as well as councillor for Ward 2, Lisa Kearns, both put out a joint statement, press release, basically condemning the decision and saying that they're not taking into account the will of the people in Burlington, which I think that's a fair criticism for the mayor and the councillor to make. I do want to point out to our listeners that we did reach out to both of them to come on the podcast to talk about this issue, but they declined. Well, the mayor's office declined because this is, and they're potentially looking at legal action for this decision and what their options are with the Ontario Land Tribunal. So, I mean, we're going to respect that decision. We'd love to have them on to discuss this in far more depth and in detail, but I understand they want to keep their options open for whatever might happen. However, I'm going to look at this kind of through the political lens, which to me I find is kind of interesting, is that this is coming off the heels of, if everybody remembers back in a few months ago, there was a big press conference outside Burlington City Hall where the mayor, Mayor Mead Ward, along with the local MPP, Jane McKenna, and the Minister for Municipal Affairs, Steve Clark, all had a big press conference where they announced, hey, Burlington's got a big win. We're going to move all the development, the urban growth center that was in the downtown, which was, the argument was made that it was helping to fuel all this development in the downtown. They're moving it to where GO stations were away from the downtown in Burlington, and that this was going to help fuel the defense of preserving the downtown how Burlingtonians wanted it. The problem is, I think this decision has kind of torpedoed that philosophy or that movement.
It's not so much as torpedo, it's that the city immediately, after that announcement with the Minister of Municipal Affairs, the city immediately kind of asked the OLT to kind of take that into account. Its decisions are like, okay, the minister has not officially put this into effect yet, but he has said that he will. Therefore, we should bear that in mind when we take appeals to the OLT, which on the surface at least seems like a reasonable point. And I don't know what the arguments were. However, the OLT said, no, we're going to pretend that doesn't exist until it actually exists. And we're going to continue doing everything as we would have done regardless. So right now, every development that comes to the OLT is being considered under the old conditions. I mean, the real issue, to my mind, the big picture issue is that once again, and we've been saying with this for years, is municipal planning departments really, when it comes to the big developments, not so much with the small stuff, but with the big developments, they simply do not count. It's almost farcical how little effect, how little power a city has over anything to do with high-rise development or the kind of applications that come from the major developers. We've been through this entire lengthy, extremely costly official plan process, which has basically taken most of the last 8 years to kind of go through in an almost painful detail. But the very first things which are coming to the OLT have not just been contrary to the new official plans, they have blasted that new official plan out of the water by matters of 10 stories or more, 10, 12 stories.
Well,
so
I'm going to give myself a pat on the back, if you will, because we talked about this back in the day when the change of the urban growth center from downtown Burlington to the GO stations, and there's this big hoopla over, oh, hey, we're all, we solved this problem and we're going to take back control of the downtown. And I said, no, you're. I called it right there. I said, no, you're not. There's no. The market is going. There's too much of a market demand for the downtown core. I mean, they're just going to build high rises, and I figured this was going to happen. The argument is made: if you have one high rise down there, where's the line? You have one, you can always add another.
The precedent has been set and set and set and set.
Right,
and that's when I was running for.
But that's essentially what the Ontario Land Tribunal has said. That was in their argument. Said we already have all these high rises. Why can't you add just one more? What's the harm in it? And under that logic, they're right. However, it's something that you and I have been kind of going on for, since day one of this podcast, was that, put the power in the hands of the local people to determine what they want. Now, I mean, that's in its own problem, is that because people think of the official plan as like, oh no, we're going to put a high-rise building here, we're going to put a park here, we're going to put a community rec center here and a library here, and that's where everything's going to fit. And that's not what an official plan is. No.
I mean, official plans really, they never were entirely that, but now they're really not worth the paper they're written on. They are a starting point for negotiations, but they're not, even saying that, which is what everybody used to say, is like, well, the official plan should be the official plan and not a starting point for negotiations. They're not really a starting point for negotiations anymore. The developer asks for what they want. The city says something. The developer doesn't care really what the city says. The city appeals it to LPAT. The LPAT gives them what they want. I'm oversimplifying it. It doesn't always work that way. The LPAT doesn't 100% support developers. However,
not LPAT, OLT, the Ontario Land Tribunal. That's the body that we're talking about. But I mean, that's the thing.
The rules
keeps getting changed every couple of years or so. The government changes the name of the arbitration body that we go.
And what I will say in Marianne Meadward's defense is that if the things that she is doing now had been done 8 years earlier by a previous council, then we'd be looking at a very different situation now, because under the rules that were introduced by the Liberal government in its kind of dying days, briefly before it was booted out, there was hope that these things could work. Now what's happening is sadly, and I don't really blame anybody for this, but it's shutting the barn door long after the horse has bolted. The approvals that are already on the books, and probably what will happen, even if they do move the urban growth centre, is that they'll say, well, everything that's already on the books goes forward as if nothing has changed.
Right.
Everything from now on can be considered under the new rules. Well, what's already on the books is, as far as most people in Burlington considered, game over for downtown Burlington.
See, what I thought, what it gets me though is there's this the idea that there's supposed to be an impartial body. The problem is it's hard for municipalities to make the argument of we want autonomy over our own structures, because I mean, when you let's be honest, a municipality does not. They have no real rights other than what the province gives them. They are a creation of the province by their very nature. There's no, it's not like, they could say, oh, municipal rights, provincial rights, federal rights. That's not how it works. They are completely at the creation of the province, which means a lot of the time and this is what I think needs to happen. The municipalities kind of need to get together and gang up on the provincial government, because this is not just a Burlington issue. And this is kind of why we want to keep talking about it, is that we've seen this issue happen in Hamilton. We've seen it happen in Oakville. We see it happening in Mississauga. We see it happening along the QEW, St. Catharines, Niagara Falls. And each community says, well, no, we want to develop things differently. Some might want a high-rise condo tower. Some might want more park space. Some might want to develop more industrial land. Whatever the case may be, everyone wants a different piece, and therefore none of them can team up. There's no precedent. You can't say, well, look at what you did for Oakville. And hypothetically, look what you did in Mississauga. Well, why, if you did it for them, why can't you do it for us? Well, no, because Burlington's needs are different than Mississauga's. And it's this divide and conquer mentality that, yes, the developers always want the same thing, just to build another condo tower. Whether or not we really need it or not, or that style, that's to be determined. However, the system is set up against municipalities because a municipality can't say, well, you gave, you ruled in favor of London or Kitchener-Waterloo or Guelph last week. Why can't you rule in favor of us for a similar situation this week? Well, no, your situation is different, and so on and so forth. Well, I guess and that's my beef, is that at least in the 905, all the municipalities are kind of fighting the wrong battle. It's this,
and they're all fighting the battle separately, right, and they're all losing. Which the change can only come from the provincial government. It's not going to come from this provincial government. It's made its intentions very, very clear. So that gives you two alternatives. If we I'm not discounting the Greens, but the parties that look like they have the chance of forming a government after the next election, should they be popular enough, are the NDP and the Liberals, the Ontario Liberals. The municipalities should be kicking down the doors of Stephen Del Duca and Andrea Horwath, demanding major policy changes, major policy announcements on how planning in Ontario is going to get changed. I mean, this is the point I made to our guest last week from the Stop the Sprawl group in Hamilton. That it's like, what are the opposition guys saying? And she said they are doing things, and I kind of feel like, yeah, I'm sure they are making the right noises sometimes, but it's compared with the kind of noises that get made, say, about sick days for during the whole COVID crisis, it's just not on the radar. I'm not seeing articles in the press. Why is that? This is an issue that is incredibly important to people living in the 905 region, and because it's about urban autonomy,
and it should be brought up. Again, like we've said in the federal election, you need the 905 to win in this province. There's that, and that's what I don't quite get about all the municipal councils and the municipal mayors. Where's this united front to say, no, give us eliminate the Ontario Land Tribunal, just give us the final say, trust us to help develop. And here's the thing: you made this current government, I don't think is going to make that change, because it's clear they want to encroach in on the Greenbelt. They want to dismantle the Greenbelt to allow sprawl to continue. They want to build highways that are questionable at best. And the problem is they realize that they don't have the municipalities on their side. The municipalities want to preserve the Greenbelt. They want to talk about, okay, well, let's find other ways to grow or to build. And that's the thing, is that there's no trust in the municipal government. Either you do that, either you do away with the planning departments in every municipality and just ship it up to the province, and you say, okay, there's a department in Queen's Park that rubber stamps developments or not. And they very well could. Don't even tell me that's, oh, you can't do it, it's too complicated. No, it's not. You just have some guy literally just stamping permission forms at Queen's Park saying to developers, yeah, carve up this land, bulldoze this, pave that, whatever. you're right. If the cities in the 905 want to see this change, they need to start getting a little bit more tough politically. I on that note, on the politics note, I was rambling for a bit, and I want to make this point. I think Mayor Mead Ward has put herself into a corner. I think she knows this. If she doesn't, she can come on and refute it. But giving the minister Clark cover with that press conference and MPP McKenna, she very much she endorsed the plan. They don't need her for anything else. They don't actually need to pass this forward. They got their press conference. Jane McKenna got to appear to be on the side of, giving Burlington the powers to be. They got that appearance, and they got Abe managed to tell people, see, we care about municipalities. We give the municipalities what they want, but they really haven't. And,
well, and the municipalities are a craven bunch of bums by and large, because the MZO process, the ministerial zoning order process, which obviously the province has shown that it's willing to use MZOs in a way they were never intended to be used, just basically to do exactly what you just said, to upload municipal decision making to the province whenever it wants to. Now, the municipalities should be crying blue murder about this. It's like, don't you dare take these powers away from us that are our powers. What's happening instead? They're writing begging letters to the minister. Oh, can you do an MZO for us? Can you do an MZO for us? Can you do an MZO for us? So they're kicking themselves in the
every single one of them.
Tender regions.
You're right. It's not just Burlington. No,
this is a general thing.
And this is time and time again. We see this happening, that they're being played off one another by this government, very much so. And if they kind of stopped and actually talked with each other and realized, we're not going to get it by asking nicely. We need to kind of draw a line in the sand and kind of pick a fight and say, no, give it to us. There's an election coming up. If the municipal leadership wanted to start throwing their weight behind certain NDP or certain Liberal candidates, it would shake things up.
The cities have always been in a crappy situation dating back to John A. Macdonald. It's not tenable anymore. It's not good enough. We need our cities to be able to govern themselves properly. And we need to trust democracy to work. The people who say, well, we can't let cities have too much power because the NIMBYs might do this or the NIMBYs might do that. It's like the NIMBYs have exactly the same number of votes as the rest of us do. Either you trust democracy or you don't.
Right.
You don't get to say, well, we trust democracy apart from when people we don't like vote. No, that's not how it works. You got to trust it. You got to trust local government to work the way it should. I would like to see the AMO, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, being used by these mayors as kind of a forum to seriously take it to the province to say, this is not acceptable anymore. We're going to do whatever it takes to get a government in Queen's Park that will pay attention to our needs in a much more serious way. And you're not going to get unanimity on that because you've got regions like York, which see things in a different way, which have a more conservative leaning. But I think overall, across the 905, you would, and including Toronto in that actually, the problems these cities are all facing, that are the same problems. It's the province overstepping what is anything like a reasonable degree of sharing power with the municipalities. Anyway, that's my rant for the week. You've got another story, Joel, and it's that school board again.
Yes, the school board that never seems to get itself out of the news. So the Halton Catholic District School Board is back in the news, and yes, it's not for the best of reasons. So we're recording this on Tuesday. Tomorrow, Wednesday, November 3rd, they were supposed to host I'm going to try and bring it up. So basically, it was going to be a parent workshop for Black families in the board. And if you are already questioning what's going on by that title, yes, you're very much right to raise some eyebrows. Basically, the workshop was to educate parents on how to raise strong, mental healthy Black children in the school board. It didn't go over well with a lot of parents. Within a few days, I believe actually the next day, there's a follow-up email sent out by the school board, basically saying they're canceling the event because they were hearing such alarm from parents and parents groups. And one of those parents groups was the Halton Catholic Parent for Change, whom we've had on before on the podcast. They were much brought up the fact that if you're going to address this in a lens, like do it holistically, like address, approach it from an anti-racism standpoint. And this got the attention of the Toronto Star. The Toronto Star printed an article basically outlining this whole fiasco. And it's, I guess their intentions were in the right place, but man, oh man, did they miss the mark on this big time.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. And we have to recognise our own the lack of qualification to comment very confidently on this subject. However, I don't know whether this came from staff or whether it came from the trustees themselves.
Well, the person who was going to lead this was a Michael Asiama. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that name right. If I'm not, Michael, please let me know. Who has done work on anti-racism in the school and working with Black families in the Catholic School Board who are unfortunately having to deal with racism. And I think that the intention was, it sounded like the intention was there to help reach out on a wider level. I would counter that with, if this needs to happen, it's not the Black families you need to reach out to, it's everyone else. If it's so widespread that you need to go and try to empower Black families and Black students to deal with the world as it is, I think you kind of have to raise a flag and say, what kind of schools are we having here?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly the way it was interpreted was that this is telling victims how to cope with being victims, where you should be. It's like, no, fix the problem, not the symptom. And obviously that's the way of approaching things, which has rightly been challenged with regard to women and girls as well. With like some of the old canards that used to be sort of bandied around about what people wore and things like that. So it certainly seems to have been misjudged in how it was framed. I think that certainly seems to have been the case. I mean, all you can say about HCDSB is hopefully people are learning, and that this leads to something better next time around. But it's difficult. I mean, we don't know. Well, I don't know who was, kind of driving the organisation of this event. But if it's coming from the kind of at the top, so to speak, it speaks to a sort of generalised pattern of kind of fouling the ball up into the stand.
What I took away from this, it's playing kind of into that, like the white savior trope, right? We're and it's in the worst possible way, because I like I say, if the problem is that bad that you need to have special seminars to say how to deal with race, you're going to address to Black families, let's deal with the racism that's being inflicted upon you and how you can cope with it. It's no, why your school, why wouldn't you go in and educate all students? This is unacceptable in modern times. Why it's one of those things, like, I'm looking on their website now, and they have a document called Racism and Discrimination, Responding with Faith, Hope, and Love. I'm skimming through it a lot. I mean, a lot of it's like, quoting from the Bible, HCDSB aspires to uphold that all people are created in the image and likeness of God, and as such dignity is inherent in all. And they quote Genesis chapter 1, verse 27 and whatnot. That's all well and good. But, here's the thing. You're a school. If you if your staff are being racist towards students, that's one thing that needs to be addressed. Why aren't you doing that? And if your students are, if it's the students that are perpetuating this, then you need to work on your curriculum. Maybe all that stuff about, and this goes back to, I think it all ties into what happened back in June with the Pride flag. Yes, I know they're two different social groups. However, if you're willing to say, well, the one thing doesn't matter, it's really easy to turn to another thing that, well, that doesn't matter either. The homophobia and racism, I think, are kind of cousins on the bigotry spectrum, and often tend to walk hand in hand with each other. So I want to say I'm surprised, but I'm also not, that they kind of missed the mark on this one. And it's made some of these, yeah.
I mean, I think we should just offer, anybody who is involved with organizing this. I mean, I'm noticing, I'm just looking at the STAR website here. The presenters who were planned to present it were two social workers. I'm going to make the assumption, and I hope nobody is offended by me making that assumption, judging by their names, that they are black, and that would obviously make logical sense in the circumstances, and that they obviously felt this was a worthwhile thing to do. So, it's possible that there are sides to this story that we're not seeing. Just sort of leave the door open on that, but I certainly think, judging by the reaction of the advocacy group Parents for Black Children, who kind of said, this is just kind of misplaced. It's striking the wrong tone. However, if there are children who are already traumatized through being at a Halton school and have dealt with the racism because they're black, perhaps this event would have helped them deal with that fallout. And maybe it's just a matter of how the thing is described that has kind of led to this. Like if trauma already exists, the school has a duty to deal with that. The problem kind of was saying, well, you might come across trauma in our schools, here's how to avoid it, which is a kind of like, well, shouldn't you be fixing the trauma? Those kind of nuances, I think, just maybe worth exploring or bearing in mind.
Yes, well, we shall see. I guess we'll see what mischief the HCDSB gets up to in the future.
They certainly do keep us busy.
No kidding. Well, I'm going to call it a night for us on the 905er podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening. Please go visit our Patreon and our Buy Me a Coffee page. All links are in the show notes. Help support us. Throw us a few bucks. All goes towards keeping the lights on here at 905er headquarters.
Right.
That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We'd love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.
Looking to make the most out of this life and optimize your personal wellness? Then check out the Natural Man Podcast. Join me, host Mike C., as we explore all areas of human wellness, physical, mental, and emotional. Learn strategies to optimize your own well-being and be in the driver's seat of your own health. Remember, your doctor works for you. Learn biohacks, neurohacks, ways to improve sleep, and ways to optimize your body and your mind. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, the Fountain app, and at naturalmanpodcast.com.